can all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. All right, good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all. Thank you for showing up. I think just a reminder to everybody, aside from the fact that there's a huge, well, it's not huge, aside from the fact that there's a sign on the door that says silent retreat in progress, please observe silence. This is a sacred space. And so we should treat it that way. And the idea behind entering sacred spaces, especially from a Buddhist temple perspective, is an opportunity to walk in and everything that you're carrying with you. All the frustration, all the sadness, all the anger, all the joy, all the excitement, whatever your emotions are, those are just temporary emotions that you're wrapped up in. And these temporary emotions that we're wrapped up in come out in expression of voice and other ways that we express it. And so the idea behind creating sacred space is when you enter, just set all of that down and allow yourself to get quiet. Because most of the people in here won't do it. Clearly, I would have no issue doing it, but most people in here are here to actually just be quiet, or probably not going to come up to you and ask to be silent, or at least quiet. And I'm not saying don't communicate. I mean, if there's a sign, if we are doing, which we've only been doing for the last 17 years, I think, the first Saturday of every month. So I know some of you might have forgotten by now, or maybe you're here for the first time and you're wondering why some dude is telling you to stop talking. Well, hi, I'm that dude, right? But the idea is to just observe the space. It's really fascinating running a place like this where there's so many things happening in it. And yet, what do we focus on? Where we are and what we're doing. And so often we're not thinking about what else is going on in the space. And so temples are set up really as opportunities to kind of just become aware of what's happening. And when we're wrapped up in noise and talking, I'm sure nobody was gossiping, so I'm not worried about that. I'm sure nobody was talking about anyone else, so I'm not worried about that either, right? But when we're wrapped up in all of that, it doesn't allow us to actually just become present and enjoy the silent, sacred space. Again, silent retreat going on or no silent retreat going on. Still just try to be a little more mindful when you enter the space, because, this isn't a restaurant. It's not a bar scene. We're not all here to hang out, right? I mean, that's what we have in our lives. We have that in other areas of our lives. These places are created to allow yourself to settle in some stillness. And when you settle in some stillness, what arises is what's in your heart and what's in your mind. And that's what we have to pay attention to. Because all the pain, all the suffering, all the sadness, all the struggle, all the aches, all the everything that's going on, that's sitting with you right now. That's heavy. And there are people sitting in this room right now that are sitting with tremendous heaviness in their hearts and in their minds. So for me, in running a space like this, it's important to allow that to occur and always be mindful and aware of other people and places and things that are in this temple. I won't get too much into it now, but I mean, we have probably 25 different programs that go on in here. And I love how every program thinks, what? They're the only one, right? And so it's really an example of, it starts with the people that come to the space, that there are other people in the space, and there are other programs in the space. And, you know, we have a nice 6,300 square foot building to maneuver all of that, not to mention construction and, you know, everything else that's going on. I hope they keep the music going. That was kind of nice. So with that, anyone here for the first time? I love when I come in and like lecture people and they're first timers. They're like, oh, yeah, I'm not worried about. Anybody else? First time? What brings you here other than to get yelled at by the person leading? Yeah.
I need some meditation.
Yeah.
For today.
Only today.
Well, just right now.
Start today. Right on. Well, I'm glad you're here. What else? First time here. What brings you here? And no? Anybody else want to share? You're scared now? Anyone else first time here?
I'm a Unitarian Universalist, and we're encouraged to visit the church next door.
Nice. We see a lot of UU people here. And a lot of our people end up at the UU church. So, yeah.
Welcome.
Yes. Thank you. Glad you're here. Anyone else here for the first time? What brings you here?
Seeking deeper peace.
Deeper peace. Yeah. Aren't we all, right? It's hard to find. Yeah, but we have 53 more minutes to bring it to you, so I'll do my best. All right, so we're going to start with the meditation practice. Those who are joining virtually, keep the noise down. That would be appreciated. Thank you for showing up. Glad you're here. A couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice of learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, often helps slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward, allows the back to straighten. If you're on a bench or chair, however you are seated, trying to relax the shoulders if comfortable. If you need to move, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a move. It's important to remember, especially for those who are new, your mind is not going to shut off. It will not go blank. You will not think nothing. It will continue to race. I will say things periodically to remind you that you're lost in thought, bring you back to present moment, or to wake you up because you have fallen asleep. Do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. I'll guide us as we begin. And starting with your eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. We'll start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continuing this practice, observing sensation of breath, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. Knowing you'll hear sounds throughout the practice. These are not distractions or disruptions, simply what's happening around us. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Where's your mind? Lost in thought. Return to breath. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, just sitting, breathing. letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments from your practice, just sitting, breathing. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought, each physical sensation, yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe. knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. And most important, in the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands across the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's it. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. It's not an easy practice. This is not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. If your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, meditation doesn't fix that. It helps you become aware of your life that's a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess so you can then make changes in your life. This is direct perception into the present moment. And the present moment, as we all know, is filled with conflict, chaos, difficulty, challenges. This is life. And many of us spend much of our lives running. And this is learning to sit with, stand with, be with life. And that's not easy. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, becoming aware of everything you think, everything you say, and everything you do. And that's all. This is your karma. Karma literally means action. It is not what goes around comes around. It is not you or people getting what they deserve. Karma is what we bring into the world. It is what we give, not what we get. The Buddha taught very clearly we generate karma 3 ways: body, speech, mind, thoughts, words, and actions. So all of our thoughts often become words, often become actions, not always in that order. But this is what we bring into the world. So what kind of karma are we bringing into our lives? What are our thoughts and our words and our actions that we are bringing into our lives? This is the practice. This is the focus. This never changes. Once we stop trying to change, control, fix, manipulate everything and everyone around us, which is where we spend so much of our time, hoping they do this, hoping they do that, wishing they would do this, wishing they would do that, so much time focused on others. This practice is setting that down for a minute and focusing on yourself. What do you think? What do you say? What do you do? So then when you see pain and suffering going on in the world, and horrific, terrible things going on in the world, which are happening every moment, then you can engage with them and in them to create a kinder, gentler world. But it has to come from love and kindness and compassion, not from anger and hatred and rage. And that's where too many people are sitting. Not just these days, not just today, not just this whatever cycle, always. Always has been, always will be. Are you coming from kindness and compassion or anger and hatred? That's your question for you to explore. That's what this practice is. And that's why Buddhist teachings say this practice isn't for everybody. You know? You really have to be ready to kind of hold a mirror up and reflect back on you. And how much fun is that? It's a blast, trust me. So with that, I'll pause. For me, I'd really prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And to those joining virtually, again, welcome. Glad you're here. Thank you for showing up. Feel free to say hello as you are. There's a chat box on your screen somewhere. If you have any questions, you can put them in there. And we'll use the rest of our brief time this morning for questions. Meditation, Buddhist practice.
Is there any discussion about how the doubt is treated in Buddhism?
How doubt? Yeah.
For example, I was thinking that it's karma theory, which is your actions would influence the causes and condition which influences future.
Yeah.
How do we know if there's a doubt about it?
Sure.
Is it just a justification for some injustice you see in the world which doesn't get treated?
Sure.
So that's
Yeah. So let me paraphrase the question for those virtual who didn't hear. The question is around how does Buddhism treat doubt? And, specifically with Buddhist teachings on karma, and then you give kind of an example of injustices in the world that, how do we apply doubt potentially? I'm just paraphrasing around, do our actions really influence other people's actions? But let me start with the doubt part, right? You ever had food you've never eaten before? Yeah. When you eat that food, do you know if you're going to like it or not?
Not before.
No, not before. There's one way to know if you like it or not. What is it? You try it. And you have some sort of open mind that says, maybe I'll like this, maybe I won't. So there's a bit of doubt in there that says, maybe I won't like this. And then you eat it. And if you like it, what are you going to do? Eat it again. And if you don't like it, what are you going to do? Stay away. But perfect. You played right into my hand just because it's you. But ultimately, you would default. You knew where I was going with this. Ultimately, you would default into gratitude and just appreciating any food whatsoever. So, of course, you'll eat it if you're not allergic to it. But for the sake of this conversation, we have doubt with everything. My first teacher used to always say, and this really comes specifically from the Buddhist teachings, of question everything. Do not, the Buddha, as you know, and many, and if you don't know in the room, the Buddha was just a human, was just a dude. Wasn't a god proclaiming these grand things. Was just a person. And he said to his disciples, try this. If it works for you, put it into your life. If not, abandon it. Right? And so my teacher used to always say, have great doubt. Absolute doubt. But that has to come with then trying it and see if it works. So for me as a practitioner, I tried putting loving kindness and compassion into my life and decided that made me a kinder, gentler, happier person. Believe me, this is gentle, right? You should have known me before. So I tried it. And that's, to me, what these teachings are about. Not because anybody told you to do it, but definitely doubt. Now, to kind of have this idea around, larger issues, because all karma is, again, to expand on it briefly, is it is simply the law of cause and effect. Now, it's also important to understand that, again, forget taking large global issues and social injustice and things like that. Just simple conversation with family members or friends or loved ones, those you know. When you approach them, you may have good intention. You may be coming from a kind and compassionate place and think, okay, well, I'm bringing love and kindness into the situation. Ever done that and had it completely backfire and go against you? Absolutely. So that doesn't always mean that when we are kind, we are going to be met with kindness. It doesn't always mean when we bring anger into a situation that we're going to be met with anger. We don't know how others will respond. So it's not a simple mathematical equation that this plus this equals this. But the practice is when you bring kindness and compassion into a situation and it's met with hatred and anger, you know what it needs more of? Kindness and compassion and understanding and listening. So the practice is have doubt, keep practicing, which is very different from what, again, I'm sure none of you in this room ever do, but very often we're met with conflict, we're met with some anger and resistance, and then we started out with this nice, loving, compassionate place. That lasted about 12 seconds. And then the other person is angry, and all of a sudden we're like, well, screw that Buddhist thing. I'm just going to tell you what I really think, right? So the practice is to bring it into everything regardless.
It's okay to have doubt.
Absolutely okay to have doubt. Yeah. There's a question here. And welcome, Cinda. Glad you're here. Always chiming in from Vermont. There's a question here. Did Buddha have thoughts on human purpose? The individual's question of why was I born? What's my bigger purpose in life? My purpose for being here? Is there a purpose? You can kind of tell from my tone and been around me long enough that, someone asked the Dalai Lama what the meaning of life was. And his response was, just be kind. And, I think from a very Western religious view, there is this, we're kind of raised in this idea that there's a grand purpose. And there may be. But from the Buddhist perspective, again, similar to what I said earlier, the Buddha wasn't a god. He was just a person. He was actually asked 12 or 14 questions that he wouldn't answer. And one of them was, at the time they were Hindu, they believed in gods and goddesses, endless gods and goddesses. And so they asked him, should we believe in that? And his response was, I'm just a person. I can't tell you what to believe in or who to believe in. I can teach you how to be kind and compassionate, but I can't tell you what to believe in. If you do believe in gods and goddesses, you do. If you don't, you don't. That's a completely individual choice to carry out in your life. And so the Buddhist message to me, which I think was echoed by the Dalai Lama around what is the purpose is to be kind. And why is that not enough? I think if we take it away from purpose, and we often, actually my favorite, and for those who haven't seen the movie, or for those who have seen the movie, don't give it away for those who haven't, but how many of you have seen City Slickers? Right? About half of you. The other half of you, please go see City Slickers, right? I always say my favorite Buddhist movies, I usually don't add City Slickers, but it's The Matrix, Fight Club, and Groundhog Day. If you want to learn about Buddhism in a Western context, watch those 3 movies. You'll never have to read anything again, and you will understand all of the Buddhist teachings. And if you want to understand purpose, watch City Slickers, because he tells you it's all about one thing. I'm not going to tell you what that one thing is. You have to watch Billy Crystal for 2 hours, who eventually will tell you what that one thing is. And then after 2 hours of laughing at Billy Crystal, you figure out what purpose is, right? So to me, the Buddhist message around purpose was just practice kindness. And this idea of present moment, right? Often following this question comes this idea of, well, what's our motivation? What's our intention? What are we supposed to do with our lives? How much of your life have you driven yourself crazy trying to figure out what you're supposed to do with your life? Your whole life is that's a lot of stuff to try to figure out, right? I remember a couple months ago, there was somebody here who was in recovery like a weekend trying to get clean. And he came out of a session with somebody who said to this person, who was a week after trying to get clean, told this person, you just need to find purpose. That's a lot of pressure, man. Like, just try to be kind today and stack those days. Trying to find purpose for your entire life. I don't know. I just don't find, I find that to be a lot of pressure on people. And we spend our lives often trying to be someone else and something else and compare ourselves and set this, bar that we're supposed to be better than. Just be kind. And as Suzuki Roshi always says, my favorite quote, you're all perfect exactly how you are, and you all could use a little improvement. So have some kindness for yourself. You're all right. You're probably a lot better than you think you are. So, what else? Oh, good. I'm glad. Because you know me, I always try to answer questions that you like. But Cindy said, I like that answer. It takes a lot of pressure off. See, we're done. You don't need to find purpose. See how easy that was? What else? Yeah.
I'm pretty new to Buddhism, and I've never heard of loving. I've heard of kindness, but not loving kindness. So is there a difference? And how can I cultivate more loving kindness? Because I feel I'm a little harsh sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think with the last part you added, so the question was, you're newer to Buddhism and you've heard loving kindness and you have a general idea of what kindness is, but what is loving kindness? And then you ended with saying that you feel like you're a bit harsh sometimes. That's actually where I was going to start, is kind of that recognition of there's just day-to-day kindness. And, without having a perfect example at this moment, maybe something will pop up, but this idea that we've often in our lives, I feel, practiced kindness towards others, but maybe not so lovingly. You ever helped someone, but just really didn't want to do it?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
After,
and then you resent it after, right? So that was kindness. You were being kind, but it was like anger kindness. It was the opposite of loving kindness.
And feeling obligated to do it, so you do it, but it's like...
Yes, and feeling obligated. And often we live doing things out of obligation. And my oldest, bestest friend always said, don't live your life doing things out of obligation. So it's that recognition, are we obligated? And when we feel loving kindness, I feel that obligation falls away because we actually want to practice kindness to self and others. And it's coming from this kind of loving place, not a place that then, as you said, brings resentment afterwards. But very often, I find if you're honest with yourself, not always, every situation is unique, but something to ponder when we feel resentment afterwards, since you brought up resentment, that is very often tied to the expectation that we had from what we did for someone.
Like ulterior motives.
Ulterior motives, right?
Clear, it's not clean, it's just something, I want something out of it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so the bodhisattva means enlightened being, the bodhisattva practice around generosity, right? And the Buddha said the greatest thing you can give is generosity. The word is dana, translates to generosity. It's not money. It's the most ruined Buddhist term. Welcome to America, right? We have taken the most beautiful teaching of generosity in Buddhism and we've translated it to equal money. It's not money. The Buddha said the greatest form of dana, which is generosity that we can give, is the Dharma, meaning the teachings of the Buddha. And it doesn't mean like giving some Buddhist talk. It means practicing loving kindness, compassion, forgiveness, joy, equanimity, all these things in our lives. That's the greatest thing we can give to people. And what he taught around generosity is the bodhisattva practice of giving, which is no gift, no giver, no receiver. So there's no attachment to the gift. So when you help someone, just help them and leave it at that. As opposed to helping them and thinking, what did I get? What don't I get? How do they feel? How did that work out? Just help people and walk away, you know? Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. What else? Yeah. Sorry. Douglas. Thanks, Dana.
I know Buddhists believe in different things. There's clashing ideas between the sects, but if you're born a human, do they believe you're going to be reborn a human, or you can be reborn like a tree? Or
Yeah. The great question of are we going to be reborn as a tree? Yes, my favorite Buddhist question of all. So the question for those who didn't hear it was, you know that there's different Buddhist views, and they often clash on this, different Buddhist sects, which there are, different interpretations around rebirth and things like that. So your question was specifically, if you're born a human, does that mean you're going to be reborn as a human, or could you be reborn as a tree? So let me back up for those who are maybe newer to Buddhism just briefly to then kind of get to the question. It's important to understand that at the time of the Buddha, in India, 2,500 years ago, 500 years before Christ, for the most part, everybody there believed in rebirth, reincarnation, continuation of consciousness, whatever you want to call it, whatever these different sects of Buddhism and how they refer to it as. They pretty much all believed that this wasn't it. It wasn't just, now fast forward to today, right? So if you went up to somebody 2,500 years ago, again, 500 years before Christ, and said, you got one life and then you're going to heaven or hell, they would have looked at you like you were kind of crazy, right? Fast forward to today, and you go up to the average Western person and say, you're going to continuously be reborn. And they're like, huh? Right? So we're just living in a completely different time from when the Buddha was alive and when he was teaching. So when the Buddha was teaching, he was teaching to an entire audience of people that believed in this rebirth. It wasn't something you had to like convince yourself of, right? I mean, for those of you who grew up believing in heaven or hell or those types of things, you just grew up believing that. So that's how it would have been similar to that back then. And so fast forward to the different schools of Buddhism, ultimately what it's called is alaya vijnana, a very technical term, means storehouse consciousness. And there's a collection of consciousness. Ultimately, all of our actions, all of our karma comes together. And when the physical body dies, that consciousness will continue on, right? Again, you don't have to believe in rebirth to look at Buddhism. Just think of rebirth as like every moment is a rebirth, every day is a rebirth, things like that. Forget about this whole birth and death thing for a moment. This idea of what are we reborn as, right? So your name is Douglas, right?
right.
Is that who you are? No. Who are you?
Chemicals.
I mean, yeah, I mean, this is more, a more rhetorical question, but who are you? You have a definition of you. Other people have a definition of you. There's a you from 20 years ago. There's a you from tomorrow. There's the you that came in here. There's you that's going to walk out the door, right? None of those are ultimately you. Each moment is a new experience, creating a new consciousness. Every single moment, we're always changing. But we think, these are my arms, this is Jeff, this is my body, this is mine. And so we operate from that place. And the Buddhist teachings around non-self says that we are physically here. And I have a name. And people will define me differently. But none of those things are who I am. All I am is just a trillion moments of experiences over a trillion years that have brought me to this moment. You'll define me, I'll define me, other people will define me. Those are just labels and constructs we put on people, right? So the question question of what happens when we, I just want to clarify that for you all. So the question is, what happens when we quote unquote die, right? Well, the Nagarjuna's teaching, 4th century Buddhist philosopher, said there's no beginning and no end. Thich Nhat Hanh does an incredible job of teaching this kind of cycle where he says no birth, no death. No coming, no going, no beginning, no end. We are never born and therefore we never die. We are just endless consciousness continuing on, right? Now, when it comes to when the body physically dies, Tibetan Buddhism gets really specific with this. They say that the consciousness leaves the body. It floats in what's called the Bardo stage for up to 49 days. At some point in time, on usually the 7th day within the 49-day period, you have sperm, you have egg, you have consciousness, sperm and egg comes together, consciousness enters, and boom, there you have it, right? Again, simple for y'all? Great. This thing about what are we reborn as? Don't worry about it. So the Douglas that walked in here today, when you hopefully, I mean, we have a few minutes left, right? Hopefully you'll stay alive long enough to exit the building. Otherwise, I got a lot of paperwork to do, right? The idea is that you're going to leave the building. Can you be a kinder, gentler person out there? What's going to determine how you feel tonight? What you do when? Now. For those who do believe in heaven or hell, for the most part, what determines where you go? For the most part, your actions. So the Buddhist focus is on what are your actions, right? If I told you that you were coming back as a person, as a tree, as a dog, as a fish, I don't know. I'd just be making it up. If anybody tells you that they know from a Buddhist lens, they don't know. Focus on what you do now. That determines what's next. Same thing with this idea of rebirth. Every moment is a rebirth, just like you moving from here to outside. Yeah. So, yeah. What else? Yeah, go.
You mentioned, do our actions influence others? So I was listening to the answer, and I don't know if I didn't hear it because I couldn't hear it.
Yeah.
The question is, are we powerless with respect to others' actions?
Yes. Ultimately, we are powerless to others' actions. Now, the question was around, you heard me say something about other people's actions. You didn't hear an answer. And then your question is, are we powerless? I was just paraphrasing for those virtually didn't hear it. Ultimately, yes. Can anyone else determine what you say? Who decides what you say? What's your name?
Ultimate Sean.
Sean.
Ultimately.
Yeah, I know where you're going with this. I've been around this stuff a long time. Ultimately, who determines what Sean says? Sean. You ever have to pee? Can anyone else pee for you? No. You also want to leave in a few moments, right? Can anyone else leave for you? No. Who determines that 100%? Sean. Now, if I put a sign on the door that says, bathroom is out of order, I have now influenced your ability to pee. Haven't I? You could then choose to ignore the sign and go to the bathroom anyways. If I locked these doors and barred the windows, which I wouldn't do because it'd be a fire hazard, right? Would that influence your ability to leave? Yes. But ultimately, whose choice is it? It's yours. Then the question is, are you okay with the choices that you make? Maybe you don't want to leave. Maybe you've had enough of the world out there. Maybe you do want to spend the rest of your life living in the temple, which would be great because I could use some help, you know? So ultimately, this idea of, it's a interesting word choice, which you chose, not me, of powerless, because we think of power as if, I don't want to get into the word power. Power is a very strong word, right? And so this idea of powerless, nobody determines what anybody else does. The law of cause and effect says everything I do is impacting you. This is why, from a Buddhist perspective, the practice is to be very mindful and aware of everything I think, everything I say, and everything I do, karma. Because everything I think, everything I say, and everything I do can impact you, can affect you, can alter the decisions that you make. But ultimately, I don't have the power to make your decisions, right? If I came up and punched you, right? You got a lot of choices. You could punch me back, you could hug me, you could do a million other things, right? But if I punch you, you might be more inclined to punch me back. If I came up and I hugged you, you're less inclined to punch me. So it's important to understand that what we do absolutely influences other people. So I want to be very clear here, and I think I'll close with this thought, is to not ignore the reality that what we do has a huge impact on the world around us. And very often this kind of teaching, this practice could lead us to think, well, what they're doing is what they're doing. It has nothing to do with me. There's a teaching in Buddhism called geographic karma, where we impact the spaces that we're in, whether it's a temple space, whether it's at the grocery store at Sprouts, whether it's traffic, whether it's, in virtual communities, we impact places. San Diego has geographic karma based on the collective views of the people in San Diego, as does California, as does the United States, as does every other country, and how they interact with each other. So the causes and effects of each individual place impacts in a ripple effect way. But ultimately, as individuals, we are making our choices. Yeah, that's my understanding from Buddhist teachings, which is really beautiful, because that means all the anger and misery and depression that I carried for so many years, you know who's responsible for that? Me. It would suck if somebody else was responsible for that, because then I'd be relying on somebody else to take that away. But if I put it there, I can just as easily let it disappear, But it's not easy. And so the practice is to surround yourself with people and places and things that create healthy, non-toxic, safe environments. Yeah. Anything else before we close? All right, so we'll join palms. Any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace and free from suffering. May this merit be transferred to Lauren and her family during their time of suffering. May they all be at peace and free from suffering. All right, a few quick announcements before you all head out. Thank you for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma Bum. We opened up this temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who leave, we're not monks or nuns or gurus or masters or teachers. We're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. Every night we have different practices going on, different lay people leading from a different Buddhist tradition. Every Thursday, 4:30, we do, I think, probably the best thing around here. It's a food redistribution program. We prepare gourmet vegetarian meals, also known as peanut butter and jelly, and we feed people sleep on the street. So anytime you think your life sucks and you kind of lack gratitude for all you have, feed people sleeping on the sidewalk, and it tends to put things into perspective, and it doesn't work. Keep coming back until it does. The first Saturday of the month, as I so kindly alluded to earlier today, we do a half day of silence. So if any of you think that 20 minutes of silence is absolute torture, I strongly recommend trying it for 4 hours. To my knowledge, most people have survived. It's not 4 hours straight sitting. It's about a 20-minute meditation that's broken up with some cleaning meditation or walking meditation. So there's some breaks in between. But it's from 8 to noon the first Saturday of every month. It starts up here. And then, as it is right now, they eventually move downstairs and finish the retreat in the downstairs meditation hall so we can all be here. Out of the ordinary, I don't think anything other than we started our new Tibetan Buddhism class this past Thursday night. So it's an 8-week class. Again, that started last Thursday. You can drop in anytime. You don't have to do the whole 8 weeks, but that's every Thursday at 7. Buddha Food's downstairs if you need anything. Dan actually on Thursday nights would be a great, from a Tibetan lens, to ask the questions around rebirth and do we become a tree and stuff like that. And I just feel, because it's just what I would do. There was a comment earlier, I won't say who, but they said, be quiet, people, just so you know. So someone virtually told you all to be quiet, so it wasn't me. Thank you all. Be well.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.